Hello, Rick here with another Index video, this time looking into Star Trek's super social species with stretchy smiles, the Denobulans. This species was introduced with Star Trek Enterprise and has been present alongside the development of humanity in the United Federation of Planets since its inception back in 2161, although it was not one of the founding races. Your standard Denobulan stands around 5 to 6 foot tall and is a fairly typical humanoid race. They do, however, possess a number of cartilage-like protrusions around the face and the rest of the body, such as down the spine. They also have a strongly elastic skin that can exhibit a number of exaggerated emotions. This elasticity is used in an evolved defense mechanism where they puff up their face to shock potential danger, though this is less likely to work on sentient species. They also had extended tongues and their nails grew at a faster rate than humans, therefore personal grooming often had numerous extra steps involved. Just as well then that they required only a couple of hours sleep to function properly. This was compensated for by a hibernation period that occurred once a year for just under a week, around 6 days. A Denobulan was unable to be roused during this state without chemical interference, but such an awakened individual functioned poorly, akin to a human suffering from sleep deprivation. They also have rather strong immune systems, likely an adaptation to their close living conditions, and their internal organs were more complex than a human's. Their neurology was also very different from that of a human, but on about par in terms of capabilities. Though this did mean that a Denobulan mind was less susceptible to effects that could affect a human mind, but more vulnerable in other ways. For example, they seemed to have a lower tolerance to certain radiations, and vivid hallucinations are considered a normal part of a stressed Denobulan's mind. Pheromones play a strong role in Denobulan biology, with the species smelling each other as a form of intimate greeting, and an amplification of these pheromones during their mating cycle. This can create a more aggressive attitude in males for a time. They were also affected by the pheromones of other species, such as the Orions, however they had a soporific effect rather than an excitable one. The Denobulans also have a strong dexterity that allowed them to climb and scale rock faces with little effort. Denobula is located in the Denobula Triaxis system, which may actually be the Iota Bootis trinary star system located in the Alpha Quadrant. The species was already well known to the Vulcans, and after first contact with Earth in 2063, the Denobulans were quick to visit the new planet and introduce themselves by 2130. This is in contrast to their own first contact with the Basari, which took them a long time to adapt, having reached the conclusion that they were alone in the universe. The revelation that they were not caused them to re-evaluate their philosophies, and it doesn't seem that they maintain a religion anymore. They soon initiated a number of exchange programs with the fledgling Starfleet, including an interspecies medical exchange, where professionals would work among each other's people for experience. This is a reflection of their incredibly social and curious nature, and despite their need for companionship, they do have a great patience, willing to go years without seeing another of their own species, so long as they have the company of others. They appointed an ambassador to Earth even before the formation of the Federation. The planet itself has one supercontinent that houses the whole Denobulan population and extensive oceans. Their warp drive technology was the work of a scientist called Parnaki, who studied numerous theories around the fabric of space-time. The Denobulans' ties to humanity led them to observe the formation of the coalition of planets between Andorians, humans, Tellarites and Vulcans, and sign up as an affiliated world of the United Federation of Planets. They did not become a full member for another few decades, however, but by the 24th century they were an official member of the Federation. There were 12 billion inhabitants of Denobula, and they all lived on a single continent. This may be the result of overpopulation. However, with the advent of space travel and numerous opportunities to expand, the Denobulans have chosen not to do so, and instead choose to maintain this very close community. They have a proclivity towards social behaviour because of this, and find large populations to be reassuring, having existed in this societal style for some time. However, it should be noted that physical contact from a stranger is considered uncomfortable for a Denobulan, but I can relate to that. This communal nature extended to their relationships, and it was expected that every Denobulan would have up to 3 spouses, with each of those having 3 of their own. This could lead to very extended family trees with over 700 relations. They didn't seem to place a great emphasis on maintaining a family lineage or marrying for political gain, which is just as well. With the number of relations each Denobulan attained, it would make documenting this an incredibly complex affair. Most of these species were also fairly open with their sexuality, and marriage was not an exclusive affair regarding copulation, and open discussion of such events were not subject to the same stigma that other races apply them. In terms of technological level, the Denobulans experimented with genetic manipulation, and although regulated, they did not have humanity's poor experiences with the science, and continued to moderately apply genetic engineering to their people. In fact, Denobulan medicine and medical research was rather advanced, even for the galactic standard at the time, and many practitioners were always innovating and learning of new techniques from exposure to other cultures. They have been warp capable for at least 350 years as of their first appearance in Star Trek Enterprise, and maintain a number of research stations and institutions. However, they have very few bases beyond the Denobula Triaxa system, unlike most other races who found colony worlds and claimed territories to settle. This too stems from their preference for a close communal lifestyle. While seemingly solely based on Denobula, it is common to find teams of Denobulans abroad, learning, investigating and mingling with other species out of curiosity. This has led to them being involved in relatively few wars and skirmishes, and may be why they initially refused to completely join the coalition of planets, as doing so would tie them to a species who did claim resource-rich worlds and try to explore beyond their initial reach. In a phrase, the Denobulans seemed content to explore within their comfort zone. Their history, like many other species however, wasn't free of interstellar wars, with a war fought against the Antarans throughout the 1800s. This was a bloody conflict with casualties numbering in the millions, and much demonising of the opponent, leading to some bitter feelings even into the 22nd century. This shows that the Denobulans do have their own military force, and will deploy it if needed. They had numerous institutions based on their homeworld, with many scientific branches united under the umbrella of the Science Academy. It's easy to assume that the entirety of Denobulan society revolves around the sciences, from our exposure to Dr. Phlox and other characters that all seem to have backgrounds in fields such as geology and genetic engineering. Even taking into account the nature of the Enterprise's operations being mainly centred around exploration and such, there do seem to be a higher percentage of academics and scientists in Denobulan society. They also have relatively few forms of passive entertainment, such as film, as they find greater satisfaction from exploring the lives of other people than being presented with a tale. Their clothing was also rather plain, with little ornamentation, especially for work garb. While smaller grudges and personal strife are relatively common, these are tempered by the strong sense of patience and compassion that the species possesses, and means that major internal conflicts are far more difficult to sustain. Thanks for watching this index on the Denobulan people. There's a lot on the species that comes from Star Trek Enterprise, however much of it centres around the complexity of their relationships and the population of their homeworld, with little on the governmental structure and industries of Denobula itself. We get the sense that they are also a very curious people and tend to learn from other species, but unlike, say, humanity, the idea of simply casting off into the unknown seems to have little appeal, and they are content to learn at their own pace. With this one wrapped up, there are 2 more species that are up for the viewer-voted index, with either the Space Dumpers, the Malorn of the Trek universe, or perhaps the Space Boars, the Gamorreans of Star Wars fame. So you can vote in the comments below by liking the appropriate comment, and if I forget to post them as last time, then comment your choice and I'll have to count them all one by one, as I had to do for this one, which I made at 109 for Denobulan and 24 for Geonosian. So I'm thinking of moving the vote over to the community tab, where there's a more accurate voting system. However, it does potentially involve a few more clicks on your end to vote, and the community tab isn't compatible with every media device, so it's up to you what you find easier. And thanks again. Until the next video, I've been Rick, and I'll see you later. Goodbye and optimism!